Hey, thanks for stopping by. Enabling and disabling Live's metronome with automation is a really simple task. It can be a little bit confusing at first if you don't understand how to use MIDI routing outside of the program and back into the program, but I'm going to show you real quickly how to accomplish this task. I'll assume you've already installed or enabled your IAC driver on your Mac in your audio and MIDI setup, and that you've configured Live. If you haven't done this, I have another article and video to show you how to do this. So I'll assume you've done that. In a brand new set in Ableton, what you want to do is create a new MIDI track. This can be done in audio too, but let's do MIDI right now. And what we're going to do is not worry about input. Let's turn the input off. And we're going to send the output to our IAC driver, IAC bus 1. This was defined in our audio MIDI setup. And we're going to create a clip. Now this clip needs to address a specific envelope, and this envelope will be sending MIDI data through a CC, which is continuous controller. It sends that data outside of Ableton, and then Ableton's listening to that data as well. So we're kind of tricking Ableton into thinking it's hearing some outside MIDI input from an external device, when in fact it's actually receiving external data from itself. It's a pretty cool trick. So what we want to do here is make sure the envelope is on so we can get to the different envelopes for this MIDI clip here. And we're going to make sure also we have a channel that doesn't interfere with another device. So maybe we can select channel 11, maybe even channel 2. Not sure what your setup is like, but you don't want this to interfere with anything else. So I'll choose channel 2. I don't have any other devices on channel 2 right now. And come down here and I'll make sure MIDI control is selected, and that I choose one of these controllers here. And I'm going to need to make sure I know which controller I'm using. So let's say I could use 44. This is arbitrary. As long as it's not predefined, such as these, you can just choose any one of these. But you'll want to keep track of where you use MIDI control channel or MIDI controls on continuous controllers for a given channel. If I were to address 44 on channel 2 from some other device, I might trigger this metronome to go on and off by mistake, and I don't want that. So I'm going to isolate this function to channel 2, MIDI control 44. Come down into your clip editor here. Actually, let's increase the length of the clip to 8, and we're going to put the endpoint also at 9. So we've got 8 full measures. Gives us enough time to do what we need to do. I'm going to come down to the breakpoint here, and I'm going to click on the envelope line and insert a breakpoint towards the latter half of the clip. Click once, and then I'll click another one and drag this to the top. So I've created a change. It's a 0 and a 127. That's basically enough to tell any on-off switch to go from one extreme to the other. So what we need to do now is we need to tell Ableton to listen for this particular signal. So we're going to basically fire this clip off. It's going to send this signal out of Ableton. At the same time, Ableton is going to be listening to it, and it's going to think it's getting the information from an external source. It's going to assign the information to the control we choose, and then that will be set, and we'll be able to use that envelope in any clip in the future on a track that's sending to IAC driver channel 2 to control whatever we've assigned. In this case, it's the metronome. So what I'll do right now is I'll click Start, click here for the MIDI listening mode, and then I'll click on the item I need to assign. As soon as this hits right here, we have an assignment. Okay, want to turn that off and stop the clip. Now we can look at this and see that on channel 2, note control, continuous control channel 44, or value 44, is the transport for metronome on and off. That means that anytime we trigger this up or down, it's going to turn the metronome on or off. So as an example in the future, what I might want to do is bring this to right after the start of the clip, and this right to the top too. Then I can reduce the length of the clip because I don't need anything more than just the signal to be sent out. I could even crop the clip at this point. And then I want to make sure it's not looping. And when I hit this trigger, if I trigger this scene, you can see that it turned the metronome on. If I trigger the scene again, it's going to stay on. If I want to turn the metronome off through automation, what I'll do is I'll duplicate this clip and I'll reverse these. So I'll move this to the top and this to the bottom. So now when it detects the change from one extreme to the other, it's going to shut it off. That's how simple it is to configure one of these external controls, I guess we could call them, to be controlled by a track. Your MIDI track will control most of the automation parameters for the devices that are installed on that track. But it's difficult without using the IAC driver, in fact, probably impossible, to control elements outside of this track, such as the transport, the master controls, the reverb, the sends, all the send controls, and maybe even controls in another track without using the IAC driver. It's very difficult. So that wraps up this tutorial. If this helped you out, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and watch out for more tutorials in the future. Thanks.